Good afternoon. My name is Rita Mavunda, and I am one of the senior speaking coaches with 360 Confidence Transform. We are here for you to help you build your confidence as well as to build your self-assurance, and we offer speaking classes so that you can convey your confidence effectively, efficiently, and most importantly, make it obvious that they are confident. So today, what are we going to be talking about? Today, we're going to be talking about confidence and children and why we should instill confidence in children at a young age. It's imperative, it's important, and our children need it. So today, we're going to be just talking a little bit about why we want to have confidence. One of the reasons why we would want to have confidence kids is that we want our kids to be enriched with the tools and the skills that they need to be the best that they can be, both personally and professionally. Confidence is really important also for the way in which a child is able to convey their messages, their feelings, their thoughts, which then in turn allow for them to be more confident adults. Now, it's important that we start this level of confidence building in our children when they're young, while they are under our homes as parents. Why? Because if we can instill these types of confident feelings, confident thoughts, and confident actions when children are young, this then will translate even better when they're adults. I believe it's fair to say that a lot of us, as we become older, we're not as confident when we are speaking to our bosses. Maybe we're not as confident when we're speaking in public, confident to speak with strangers, confident to speak with the what's the word I'm looking for? With the authority on certain ideas, right? Let's say, for instance, we're at work and we've got a supervisor that we really want to be able to impress, but because we're not confident in the way in which we want to present our presentation or issues or anything like that to your supervisor, you don't really say anything. And a lot of those issues come from when we're children, because maybe when you were a child, maybe you were never acknowledged as a child with having important things to say. Maybe when you were a child, you were ignored often. Maybe when you were a child, you were always compared to other people. And because of those childhood issues, traumas, if you will, those things then affect us as we become older, when we become adults. So all of that to say, it's really important that we start with children when they're young and when they're in our houses. As parents, we are the first role models for our children. We bring them into this world. We make them go from small little babies to toddlers to preschool age as we're getting older. And during that whole time, we have to understand that children are constantly watching our actions. They're watching how, as parents, we are interacting with other people. They're also watching us as parents when we are dealing with stress. How do we deal with conflict? How do we deal with presentation? How do we deal with even dealing with our other family members? And what happens is that if a child who mimics, and right, that's what most children do, they mimic what their parents do. I'm sure you guys have definitely had it where, all of a sudden your 6-year-old walks into the room and they're saying phrases and terminology that another adult in the house has said. And, it's funny and it's cute because it's like, oh, they're like little parrots and they are mimicking back what we are saying and doing. But in that same time, it's very important to realize and learn that those same cute phrases that they're saying, our children are also watching and observing how we're dealing with conflicts and issues and how do we approach them. So one of the things that one really should be able to be in understanding when we're dealing with children is that because they're so small and impressionable, meaning that they soak up everything like little sponges, we as parents and as adults have to be very mindful with what we are saying and doing in front of children. Why? Because we don't want them to grow up and have and act in the same ways that we are as adults. If we are able to deal with these things with children from when they're small, think about all of the issues that we can mitigate when they become older, right? If from a child from the littlest age knows how to state what he wants, if she is able to say, I like this, I like that, and they don't feel bad, they're not made to feel bad, they're not shamed, they're not told that they're wrong or they're making mistakes, then imagine what that same child is able to do in an adult. If during a child age he's able to express himself openly because his parents were there to support them, then that same child takes those skills and assets that they've learned as children and they're able to transpose it to when they are adults. Now they're going to be able to be much more confident when they're speaking to other people. They're going to be able to speak their mind and be able to talk without feeling bad. So we have to remember that children, they're impressionable, and we got to be able to teach them when they're young. Further, because as I stated before, as parents, we are their role models from when they're young, and we want to be able to instill those skills that those children need so that when those kids are now teenagers and when those kids are going to campus and when those children are now engaging into young adulthood, going into their first jobs, moving on and progressing in their careers, they have been given the tools from when they were young, because now as parents, you understand the importance of making sure your children have confidence from a young age. Now imagine that your young child, now as it's grown up into an adult, they're able to really say what they want and want what they say, right? And that is a really powerful thing as parents that we can instill into our children to make them become better adults. Think about just for yourself those times when maybe you wished you would have been able to just have that energy, that muster, that grit, all of those things to be able to really say what you want, and you just were afraid to, or you weren't confident, or you didn't have the self-esteem to do so. But if we're able to instill this confidence, self-assuredness, high self-esteem, making sure that kids understand how important that they are and what their thoughts, thinking, and what they want are important, now we have instilled from a young age confidence in our children, which then will translate into when they're adults. Right? Does that make sense? I think it kind of makes some sense. So now we understand why it's important to instill these things into our children as young, because we want them to be efficient and effective adults when they're older. But now what are some of the things that we can do as parents, right? So let's talk about some of the solutions or some of the things that you as a parent can do for your child to make sure that your child is a confident adult later in life. And more importantly, also a confident child, right? Because also when we look at children who are playing, we notice these little small things when they're small. For instance, there's always like a little leader in their group, right? There's always that one kid who always gets to run everything, right? There's always that one girl that whatever she says, all the other little girls do. Right? And for me, I want my little baby girl to be the one who's running the group, right? I want my little baby girl to be the one where she's telling them all, like, look, this is how we're going to do it. And how do we do it? What are some of the things as adults that we can do? One of the things, as I'd said to you guys earlier, is really being very mindful of your language that you use around them and how does that language affect your child, right? So for instance, one of the things would be to speak very positively to your child. Now, I know that sometimes it's really hard after, let's say, just a really long work week, after maybe you've had like some upsets, some personal upsets that are in your life that, maybe you've had some problems with your partner, maybe there's like issues with your best friend, all of those different things that we as adults deal with on a regular basis, but we don't want our child to know. But our bad attitude, having feelings of lowness, it's going to come out in the way in which we speak. And so one of the solutions that I'm saying to you is to be very mindful of the language that you use, right? So trying to use more positive language instead of trying to criticize your child and say you were wrong in doing that, we switch the words and we say, is there a way that you could have done it better? Right? And now what we're allowing for the child to do is to have a little bit more ownership in what was going on, but also allow the child some space to create their own solutions in that issue. Does that make sense? The ability to be able to change how we're talking, changing from a negative point of view into a positive point of view. Now, obviously, it's a lot easier said than done, but as with all things, practice makes perfect. And if these are some mindful things that you keep in your mind, it's going to also help you in the long run to really try to be encouraging with your words with your children, right? Language is very important. So, keeping in mind, trying to think of things in a positive way. Let's say the initial reaction is to be like, oh, you're so stupid, you didn't do that. I don't want you to say that, right? I would like for you to think about maybe another way to say it. Like, maybe on today, young man, you weren't really doing your best. I know that you're able to do better than what you've done today. Do you see the difference in how rephrasing certain questions from the negative into the positive can also make a difference with how your message is received, right? Sometimes it's not what you say, it's how you say it, right? Tone is really important. Body language is very important. Your facial features and how you move your mouth and your face, it's really important. So I want you to be very mindful of the language that you use and being very encouraging of your children. I think sometimes we have all grown up as adults in houses that maybe our parents were very critical of us, and it affects us. You as a parent, I'm sure, if you, or even just as an adult, not even if you're a non-parent, I'm sure that there have been many times where if you could be honest with yourself and really sit with yourself in silence and be aware of your growing up, having that critical conversation always said to you, having been spoken to in that way, it's going to affect how you react, right? And so I want you to be very mindful of language. Another thing that I want you to be really mindful of is really being able to create boundaries for your children, right? And boundaries meaning that creating a nice, safe, secure space for your child to make the mistakes that your child needs to make, right? The only way you can really learn from anything is you've got to make mistakes, right? We have a plan, we do the plan, it didn't work out how we had to do. Now, because it did not work the way in which we wanted, you've got to go back to your plan to figure out what was wrong, change it so you can do better, right? So mistakes are mistakes, but mistakes are also great learning options, right? Your biggest learning lessons come from the mistakes and things that you've made. So I want you guys to be very aware of allowing for your children to make the mistakes that they need to make so that they can learn how to do better. And how do we do that? We've got to be able to create boundaries, make sure it's a safe space for the children, and that it's a secure place for these children. Provided that you've got boundaries, security, and safety, your children will have an area where they can openly express themselves, openly feel free to make mistakes that they have, and with understanding that the consequences are not going to be crazy, right? Because if your child is scared to make a mistake because of the consequences, maybe they're nervous that the parent's going to yell at them, punish them, beat them, ignore them, all of those things. Now what you're doing is you're stifling your child's ability to really create and be and make the mistakes so that they can learn how to be confident, right? It's from those things. It might sound a little bit weird and counterintuitive, but like follow what I'm saying. If you are given the safe space to make the mistakes that you can, and then within that, you're able to find those solutions, that ability without the fear of retribution or punishment allows for you to grow your confidence so that later when you're an adult, you don't have that fear that maybe what you've said is wrong because you're afraid of getting a reprimand, to be punished or have something bad happen. I hope that makes sense. If it doesn't make sense, definitely DM me, leave some comments on the bottom, and really let us know like what you're thinking. Now, some of the activities that you could really do with your children is spending some real quality one-on-one time with your child so that you can really understand and learn them. I think as parents, when you have multiple children, plus you're working, plus you have your partner, plus your friends, plus your family, we're always being pulled in so many different directions that sometimes we're not really able to fully focus on our children, right? Especially if you have siblings, it's like, fine, just go play with your other brothers and sisters, go get out of here, leave me alone. But one of the activities that I would challenge you as a parent to help to grow your child's confidence from young is to really spend some quality time with your child. Real one-on-one time where they can understand you, you can understand them, more importantly. When you can understand what your child is also thinking, now what happens is that your boundaries, safety, and security that you're creating is now being further reinforced because now you really know what that kid is thinking, right? Now you really know what makes that kid tick. Now you understand what's really like, maybe if he's acting like this, this is kind of what's going on. So I really want you to actively listen to your children and give them the time. I know that in our culture, that's not really something that is stressed upon, but we are now in a new age, a new time, which means that we need new skills in which we can make these things happen because we want to be able to have confident children as we get older. And another thing I really want you to be aware of is also being very present, right? I think in this day and age, because we've got cell phones and tablets and TVs and video gaming systems, we are constantly inundated with electronic material. We're always on our phone. I mean, think about it, even when you go out, sometimes you'll see families at dinner and everybody is on the phone, right? And it's just not really conducive to really being able to foster that quality relationship that we're all looking for, right? And so all of that to say is, I want you to be very present when you are engaged with your child, right? And 5 minutes of very intentional present time means a lot more than 1 hour of you being on the phone and your kid's next to you and there's no real interaction, right? So I want you to be really active and attentive and present when we are talking about learning to understand your child, helping to build their confidence when they're children so that we can make them more confident as adults, right? So one of the programs that we have with 360 Confidence Transform is that we do have speaking classes for children and we have one-on-one classes. So the one-on-one classes are exactly that. It's a one-on-one class with a senior lead coach where it works for a few weeks. We meet a couple of times during the week and the program is super tailored just to you. We also do a kids speaking class where it is with youths, and it's only with youth, and it's a safe space for us to really learn to work on our communication skills and to also work on our ability to speak up, to be heard in a safe space. So if that's something that would be of interest to you guys, please look us up. We're on 360 Confidence Transform. You can find us on all of our social media, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. We are 360 Confidence Transform. Here on YouTube today, we are 360 Confidence Transform. I would really love it for you guys to follow us, DM us, comment, ask me questions. If there's something that I've said today in this video that has really sparked something in you, leave us a comment. Let's have a discussion, because that same question you have, I guarantee you many other people have that same question, but they don't have the confidence to ask the question. So let's get into it. Let me answer anything that you want. If you're interested in any of our classes, like I said, you can call us, DM us, 360 Confidence Transform on all of our social media platforms. You can also call us at 0714-157-374. We look forward to hearing from you. And thank you for your time today. Rita Mavunda, 360 Confidence Transform.